guys, in this video we will be learning about how to take files from Rhino to Illustrator in order to create diagrams. And in this case we are focusing on the wind roads analysis that we created using Ladybug, and we will create a diagram out of these from Rhino to Illustrator. And when it comes to the baked file that we baked from Rhino, from Grasshopper, it gives you a mesh as well as a 2D line. So in order to use it correctly, we can move the mesh into a different layer, a sublayer inside the layer that we have. And this is the models that we had before, the buildings, which are 3D buildings. And we can just double click on here on the letter and make it smaller. In this case we just made it 2, and I think it's the perfect size for this diagram. And in order to create the diagram we can just move to a different view. This is a view that I've created and with a white background, and in this view we can change the colors of the buildings as well. So in this case we are focusing on ATC buildings, so we will move it into a different layer and change the color of it to make it the main focus of the diagram. And right clicking on the layer and changing object, we change the layer of any object, and we can change the color. I think this is identifying the building correctly and bringing focus to the building that we are focusing on. And in order to export this we will use view capture to file, and you can change the setting to change the resolution and everything else and the background. But in this case I am happy with the setting that I have, and I can just click OK to export it. I've already exported one, so I'm just gonna replace that one and click OK. Once I exported the image that I want, I can just create an Illustrator file. In this case we can just create an A3 Illustrator file and hit on create. Once we create the file, we can just go to File, Place, in order to place the image that we exported from Rhino now. And once we place the image, we can just embed the image as well as align it to the window that we have. And once we are happy with the alignment of the image, we can just lock the layer now, and we can go back to Rhino, and this is the text that we baked, and it was too big, so we can fix that issue by just making it smaller and using the match annotation tool to match the rest of the annotation with the annotation. And we can export this one individually as well using the export view capture to file. Once we export, we can try to make it as without a background to see if that would work. So create another layer to put the legend in, and we can just insert the legend. In this case I thought the background will be like clear background, so that did not work. So we have to go back to Rhino again and export it with the background, and just replace the file that we exported already and go back to Illustrator. So there's like a lot of back and forth between like the two programs. So once we import the image, we can just resize the image and also make it smaller by using rectangle, and then selecting both the image and the rectangle. And once you do Control 7, that would crop the image, and you can place it wherever you feel like or wherever you think is the right location. Once we imported that, we have to make this file a 2D file. Also, the windrows is already a 2D file, but the buildings that we have is not 2D, so we have to use the Make 2D tool in order to make that 2D. And it will give you this 2D lines with all the 3D elements and everything else. So once you have that, we can also export this information with it and make it maybe smaller and move it to the file that we're exporting, or the 2D lines that we're exporting, and we can play around with the size of the text. I think in this case this text is fine. So select everything and click on File, Create File to export selected, and we can select it as a DWG file, and we can just like save it in our downloads for now and give it the right naming. Once we have that, we can just open the DWG file in Illustrator, and we can see the 2D lines exported. We can copy this file to the other file. Maybe before we do that, we should group this line work and then copy it to the other file. And now we can just play around with the placement of the text, maybe like create a different layer for the text so we don't move it. And now it's just a matter of fixing where the model is, or where the line work is. So lots of moving around, resizing, and now I will make the speed of the video quicker to make this process a lot quicker. Once the size is the right size, you can just make it bigger maybe. and yeah, like try different locations. And here I noticed that the 2D line is not showing, so I have to ungroup the file and put it in like another layer and then group it again, and now it is showing correctly. And once that's showing, we have to get the legend, which is hidden at the moment. So once the legend is there, you can just change its layer to an above layer. And once you're happy with how everything looks like, you can just like keep editing, maybe to find like the perfect locations to the legend and text. And yeah, this is how you take drawings from Rhino to Illustrator, which is pretty straightforward, and you can use these drawings for different purposes such as presentations, folios, and anything else.